Welcome to the EW Podcast. I'm your host, Eric White. Today's episode is a conversation with Michael Boidy. Mikey is a filmmaker and speaker focused on the healing powers of sound. In this episode, we chat about Mikey's experience surviving a helicopter crash while filming in Guatemala and his subsequent recovery, which included a trip to Burning Man that would ultimately influence his current area of focus. We talk about his upcoming documentary Heartbeat and the podcast he's also working on, in addition to exploring some real-world examples of how sound is being used to heal various problems within the body. We discuss the positive effects of music festivals on personal well-being and explore what it is about certain types of music that can be healing. We then spend the end of the episode riffing on various things related to sound, including sound baths, rock music, and more. I provided some links in the show notes to various things we talk about in this episode, including Mikey's TEDx talk, which I encourage you to check out for more information about his experience. I think we can all probably relate to having been impacted in one way or another by sound, whether in the form of good music we love or experiences like sound baths. So it was a lot of fun for me to get into some of the science behind these things with Mikey. Just one piece of housekeeping before we get into it. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, I would just ask that you please consider leaving a rating for it on Apple Podcasts, as this will help grow the reach of the project. That's really all I have. I hope you enjoy this episode. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Michael Boidy.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, man.
Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. I'm here with Michael Boidy. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today, Mikey. Your story is super interesting and stoked to get into the weeds on it with you.
Awesome. I'm really excited to share this message and my story with people. It's kind of fun, and it's been quite an adventure.
Yeah, it started with quite an adventure, what turned out to be traumatic adventure, right? So let's just give a little background, I guess, on what started your journey with healing through sound.
I guess the first thing, the healing with sound is a direct result of my helicopter crash that I was in April of 2012. We were down in Guatemala. We were filming aerials of the Mayan calendar. During the Mayan calendar was 2012, and they wanted to capture a bunch of the pyramids and the whole area of Guatemala for 12 days. I was going to be doing aerials there. Forced 45 minutes up in their flight, we crashed in Antigua over this really beautiful church, and we fell about 500 feet and we crashed, and there was nothing left of the helicopter. However, 4 of us still survived. And from that accident, I had horrible concussion, brain injuries, and my back was broken, my lower back, and I basically was unfunctional for about 6 months. I was able to walk a little bit within that 6 months, but it took me a long time, and it was very painful and a really traumatic experience to go through. I wouldn't wish on anybody. However, coming through all of that and being able to have that time to sit and just really ponder life a bit and wonder what it's all about, not that we don't do that on a daily basis anyway, but when you have extensive amount of time in a hospital bed in Guatemala where, there's just not a lot to do but watch Seinfeld in Spanish, you start to think about all the things that really matter in life and what you're here for and what your purpose is. And I still wasn't sure. It didn't hit me right on the head. It was like, what are you here for? You're here for, you were saved from that crash for a reason. I know that. So what ended up happening was, about a year and a half after all my physical therapy and me just sitting around a lot, my best friend in the world, who I went to college with, he's like, I went to this thing in the desert and you got to go with me. And I was like, what's that? He goes, it's called Burning Man. I'd never heard of it. I didn't even know what it was. And I'd been to, hundreds of Grateful Dead shows. I was in a band my whole life. I played music forever. But I'd never been to Burning Man. I didn't even know what it was. So he took me there, And it was probably within, a few days of just being there that my energy completely shifted. My body and my mind started to feel more alive and alert, and um, basically like shed the skin that I had on me that I was been wearing for a while. And it was almost like I lost, a bunch of weight. My back stopped hurting me. Within a few days, I was just like, "What is going on? Like, I don't feel any pain anymore. I don't feel stiff anymore. I feel really, really good. I feel really happy. I feel like something's something's different, and I don't understand it. Like I feel
Yeah.
really, really good." And I ended up going to the temple like about 4 days into it. I think this was a Thursday or Friday morning after someone highly recommended it. They said you should definitely go to the temple while you're here. It's a really special place, and after what you've been through, I think you might really benefit from just being in there. I think it's a powerful place. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I'll go check it out. Well, after being up with my friends all night, I was like, I got to go. We were riding past the temple. I was like, I'm going to go here and stop here, and I'll see you guys later on. Well, I went into that place, and I haven't been the same since.
Hmm.
It like shifted my entire being. Whatever happened there, I had this like divine intervention or epiphany that kind of set me off on where I am today.
Wow. So before you went to Burning Man, what were you expecting that experience to be like? Were you expecting to be mobile at all, or what was your thoughts on how you were going to kind of exist and move about this festival?
First of all, I had no idea how big it was. I literally, I brought a guitar. I brought like my computer, and my buddy's like, "What are you doing? You're not going to play your guitar. You probably won't play." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You probably won't even touch your computer ever, so you shouldn't bring it." But I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. How will I not have time to like play my guitar or not use my computer? Like, I don't get it. He's just like, "You'll see when you get there." And so I got it. When I got there, I literally couldn't even stop just moving and riding my bike and going. I found my friend he introduced me to Jacques Levy, who's Jacques the Ripper at the time. The DJ stayed at Kundalini camp. We were staying at his camp, and I didn't know anybody. And I followed Jacques around to all of his sets, and literally, I was like, "This is amazing!" Like it was like I've been playing music my whole life. I've been around concerts and festivals, but I've never been to something like this. And the music was like just entrancing, and I couldn't stop dancing. I couldn't stop moving. I couldn't stop like the smile on my face and the glow that I had. People were like, "What is this guy on?" But honestly, I was really just high on life, and I was high on this experience that I'd never, ever, ever had before. We were around people that were so energetic and so vibey and so positive that like it literally I didn't even think about my injury or people. When people saw me, they probably didn't even know I had even had an accident unless I told them about it, or they
Hmm.
saw me like kind of like maybe limping around a little bit. But in general, it was ultimately like this just really life-changing experience that I had never expected.
Yeah. At the beginning of the week, I'm assuming your mobility was probably pretty limited though, right? And it was something you kind of shed as you went through the week and started biking and dancing and you became more and more mobile. Is that right?
It's super right. Yeah, I was like, I kind of walked in not like geriatric style, but I walked in like stiff, and we sat in the car all for hours to get there, and like when I got out, I was definitely like, how am I going to get around like I do, and maybe I'll just do a little bit here and there, and it's a big place. But honestly, like once I started riding my bike and dancing, like I really realized a lot of the healing came from the movement of the dance and like from being in nature and being around positive energy and being around this music that was so elevating and so positive and so like it just took my breath away, and it kind of made me feel like everything didn't matter anymore and all that mattered was that moment. And I
Hmm.
hadn't ever felt like that before. Like I've been playing, like I said, music my entire life. I've been doing festivals of all kinds, and never ever experienced the moments where everything went away, no pain. You're just completely in a different place, and
Hmm.
like And within that week, I was like, there's something seriously going on here. And when that experience happened in the temple, which was happened to be a pyramid, I literally, when I came back to myself in that pyramid, I'd like left my body for hours in a meditation, which I'd never done before. And like when I got back to myself, I was like, someone stuck a USB of information in my brain that I knew nothing about, or that I kind of had an idea, but it was like, you need to go research and think about and realize that you were here for a really big purpose. And it was to share this experience of healing what just happened to you in this time being here, that you are now like a new person. And when I got back home, every single person I'd walk up to that had known me for years was like, oh my God, like you look so different. Like there's this huge glow about you. And I'd never even like seen you like in this light. It was like you completely like
So
metamorphized. Yeah.
people saw a change in you that they didn't even recognize from like before you had the accident. You had changed
Right.
so much that you didn't even resemble the person you were before the helicopter crash.
Yeah. My neighbors, like people that had known me for years, even, best friends and stuff, they were like, whoa, who are you? And like just within a few festivals, I lost so much weight from moving around and dancing that literally all my back pain went away. I'd never had like back pain ever again. It was like I really realized it was like the key moments. It was just like dancing to music that you really made you feel good, and I couldn't stop listening to music. Like I always listen to music constantly, but I literally was like non-stop electronic music. It kept me moving. It kept my heart going at the right rate. It kept everything feeling good. And I learned that a lot of that experience was the people, the energy, being in nature. It was so many of the elements together, but the frequencies are basically the key, the cornerstone of all of it. The music brought us together. The music kept me moving. The music was the key element in all of the factors that like raised my vibration and energy so much to the point where it was like screaming out to me like, this is a serious thing you've gone through, that it's way more serious than the crash. That the crash was just the catalyst, I believe, to get me to this experience so that I could be of some sort of hope and message to others that are just sitting around and maybe they're in a hospital and they're going through the same experience I am, that they'll one day find a friend that will take them to, it doesn't have to be a music festival. It doesn't have to be Burning Man, but take them to a place where you can dance and be yourself and be free in nature, even just go camping with your friends and like light a fire and talk and dance and like let go. Like that letting go, what I learned there too was like you're carrying a lot of trauma and energy that's stored in our, what I learned is to be our energy field. And it stays within us from birth till now, and it can live with us since before birth. With our DNA, we can have things that are just trapped inside your cells that are just itching and dying to get out. And music and frequency is like the catalyst that moves it through the body. And it alleviates so much tension and stress that you don't even realize that you're carrying with you. It's such it's a funny thing that we think just some music will make me feel better. But honestly, like the chemical reactions that are happening and occurring are the same chemical reactions that are occurring when you take a pill to make you feel better. It's just like it's the pills are just dialed in frequencies. So it's a chemical reaction. The same thing that I learned scientifically is happening is that your cells are responding to the frequency, just as if a pill where you were taking, it was sending signals from the heart to the brain. They're communicating. It's now releasing dopamine. It's lowering levels of, stress hormones. It's now increasing melatonin. All these things that now make you feel good and make you feel happy are all the things that are a result of good music and good vibes and good frequencies.
Yeah. Were you on any painkillers or anything going into the burn? And if so, were you able to ditch those afterwards, or is that something that kind of stuck with you if you were taking them?
That's a really good question, actually. The doctor in Guatemala where I was at refused to give me any painkillers. like they gave me some sort of like sedatives and muscle relaxers while I was going through the surgery and after for like a couple days. But they said, I don't want to put you on any sort of painkillers. You might be addicted. These are heavily addictive painkillers people often don't recover from, and I really don't want to put you on that path. So if you would like, we're just going to keep monitoring you and for the next month and see what kind of pain levels you're dealing with, and we'll kind of administer different types of things that'll help you. But ultimately your body will create a painkiller just in reaction to it. It's going to start developing its own um, antibodies to fight the pain, and you won't even realize it, but you're gonna have to go through some shit, but it's gonna really really feel better, if you don't do the painkiller route. And I was like, okay, I don't even like pills anyway, let's do it.
Yeah.
It was the most awful experience. I swear to God, I was in pain, screaming at the doctors, throwing things across the room. Like, I can't even tell you the amount of pain I was in. Like, if I could tell you, it brings back horrible memories, because it was like beyond anything I ever imagined. Like, I was just being tortured. But I did realize afterwards, when I got back to the States, all they wanted to do here was give me pills.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's probably a good thing that happened internationally and not in the U.S. It might have turned out a little differently, huh?
It's strange, yeah. Most people would think it was the opposite. I would have got the best care here, and I'm sure it would have been fine, but I didn't even have... I barely had... I did have healthcare at the time, thankfully. My ex-wife kept me on her healthcare at the time, and I was able to get decent healthcare when I got back. But there, they treated me so good in Guatemala, and the people in the hospital were really kind, and they gave me good food, and they were always, considerate of my pain levels and what I was going through. But honestly, when I got back, it was more about like, hey, I know you're going through pain. Let's just give you some pain pills. And I was like, yeah, but I don't take pain pills. And they're like, yeah, but just take them anyway. And I was like, yeah, but I really, I was advised not to. And they're like, yeah, but just take them anyway, just in case. And I was like, all right. And they would stack them up at my house. And I just had like a whole bunch of them, and I never took them. And honestly, like, I tell people this day, like, unless you really, 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 really have to, try to ditch it. It's not really. But some people, they want to take it. It's all right. I'm not going to like fight people on it, but I'm so glad I didn't.
Right. Yeah, I commend you for that, man. I try to put myself in that situation, and I would have been eager to look for anything to bring me relief, I think. So that's pretty amazing on your part that, it's lucky on your part to begin with that the doctors you first had were reluctant to do that to you. But also I commend you for having the courage when you got back to stick with the route that had been laid before you.
I got really, really lucky with the doctors. Like, I was in Guatemala and I didn't know anybody. I could barely speak Spanish. And my mentor...
Did you learn it from Seinfeld? Enough Seinfeld episodes?
No, I wish. No, I had been studying Spanish since I was a kid, but I don't know it well enough, especially in Guatemala. It's not like the same kind of Spanish here. And I don't know. I'd use Google Translate as much as I could to help me. And then I became friends. One of the guys that was with me in the crash spoke Spanish. He was from Guatemala, and we've become really good friends since. And him and his girlfriend would always answer the nurses for me and talk for me and like translate. In fact, that was his job in the helicopter, was to translate. So that was one of the key problems, was that I had to speak to a translator. Translator would talk to the pilot. And when you're doing film jobs, aerial filming, it's really difficult to not have a good communication with the pilot. Like, that's one of the key elements for making good shots, is me being able to communicate with the pilot. And because we were in a situation that I told him to go higher and faster over this church, he went lower and slower because it just didn't get the translation. And that really that's why we did crash. It was ultimately the crash. Sorry, I got off track though, but the Spanish thing. Bad. No, that was my bad. I digress sometimes, but the Spanish thing, yeah, no, it was pretty amazing that in a place in Guatemala where I couldn't communicate as well, they were very communicative with me and really helped me understand that, the implications of what I was going through and how to heal. And the doctors were really, really good. They were trained where I grew up in Chicago. One of them had been schooled in Chicago, and then the one that worked on my face. My whole face was bashed in and like cut up, and I thought I was going to look like a monster for the rest of my life. And they literally patched me back up, and I couldn't even tell that anything had happened. Barely. It was just some cuts and the things you wouldn't even notice today.
You have pictures. I think you've shown me pictures of you showed me a picture of at least the crash, I think, right? You still
I'm
have,
sure. Yeah, I'm sure. And you could see it in my TED talk and stuff. I just wanted people to I know sometimes it's gruesome to show those things to people, but
yeah,
you really get more of an effect. Cause sometimes I tell people I was in a crash and it literally like goes right through there. I was like, yeah, I was in a helicopter crash. I'll say it nonchalantly. And they'll be like, yeah. So, and those keep going on. Like they never even heard it. But if
yeah.
you show someone pictures, they're like, wait, you survived that? Like, wait, how's that possible? How did you walk away from this? Because there was nothing left of the helicopter. So I definitely realized I learned in that temple at Burning Man that I was here for a reason, and I was here to spread the message that music is the key, the actual secret to finding harmony and balance within your life and within your mind and with your energy. It's like everything is made of music, the whole entire universe. Everything's in rhythm with each other, the planets, the stars, everything's functioning on a mathematical, rhythmic, harmonic sense.
Yeah, that's one thing you said in your TED talk that I thought was interesting. How universe, if you take a word, the uni in the verse, it says one verse pretty much. It's kind of interesting.
One song.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What were the mental and emotional effects of you after this crash? Did you have PTSD or have any issues with anxiety or depression after you came down?
I realized that PTSD and depression strike you in ways that you don't even realize. Like, I thought I was fine. I was a happy camper, just sitting watching breaking episodes of Breaking Bad over and over. And I was like eating chocolate cake. People would bring me like all kinds of goodies and like, hey, you were in a crash. Like you have you can't move. Like, let me bring you every kind of junk food that you love. And like, we'll smoke a bunch of weed and just sit and do nothing and watch, episodes of whatever you want all day long. And it sounds great. It sounds fun. But honestly, after a few months of that, you're like, all right, now what? I just want to get back to my life, and like I really want to like start functioning again. But you realize that you can't, and you can't do all the things that you wanted to do, and that starts to hit home a little bit. And then when the people around you, are doing things and you're not, and the people, all the work things that you're involved in, and it gets a little bit like it wears on you and you don't realize it at first because everyone's like coming by and making you feel good and calling you, and you're just like, oh, I'm loved and I'm supported and I'm going to get better. And I know if I just keep working out, I'm going to get stronger, but it still sits with you and it starts to feel like you're not going to get better. And it starts to feel like you're not going to work again and you're not going to be doing all the things you wanted to be doing that you used to be doing. And that kind of hits hard. Like you don't realize at the time, but it definitely hit hard. And I was depressed and I wasn't acting my best self and I wasn't being my best. I didn't realize it either. I was just like functioning just like everybody else does in the world, but just that's it. I was just functioning. I wasn't like living with a purpose. I wasn't doing something that I thought was going to help change the world. I was just kind of just thinking about me at the time and just recovering, which was fine, I realized. But at the same time, I needed a purpose and I wanted to realize why I survived that crash. It was like it hadn't hit me yet.
And so Burning Man, it healed you physically. Well, it started to heal you physically, and it also had a positive emotional impact on you as well, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I now had a future and a life all over again. It literally was like the Ouroboros, the rising of the phoenix. The crash was one thing, but going to that experience at Burning Man with my best friend and then meeting all these amazing people and like feeling like I can do anything after I seen and done what I saw there was like, it was so inspiring. And I cried for probably a good year after I went to Burning Man. Every day I was like, I just had this emotional like outburst and like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do something really big and impactful. I'm learning about music and sound. And I'm like, that was my goal. And was like, I learned it all from there. Honestly, like like I told you, I'd played bands, I played music. I really loved being around these events before, but it was nothing like Burning Man had ever. I'd never experienced anything like that.
Were you doing physical therapy before you went to Burning Man? Were you putting in work in other ways besides the miracle that happened to you at Burning Man?
Oh yeah, I went to physical therapy about 6 months after the crash. They, it was like you can't even do anything, so they don't recommend that you start physical therapy for quite a while. And I couldn't even get there anyway. I couldn't drive. I couldn't have someone put me in the car. So it was pretty much I had to wait 6 months for physical therapy, and then I found this great place down the street where I used to live in Venice and Marina del Rey. But they would come and pick you up and take you to therapy and then drop you off. And it was like, it worked out so perfect because after 6 months, they pick me up and I go 3 days a week, and they really like focused just on me. It wasn't like they had a bunch of people they were working on. They were focused on me and my back. And I started doing like core yoga type stuff, yoga and Pilates things that they taught me that were working on my core strengthening, which really actually helped me a lot get to a point where I could function and walk and like be normal again, but without, I still had a lot of pain and I still had a lot of stiffness that wouldn't go away at that point.
Yeah.
But it gave me ability to move, and it gave me ability to feel like feel the strength, and then give me options and a knowledge how to use certain strength exercises that would be good for life to keep working on the core.
Cool. Yeah. I asked that because in my own experience with depression and like mental unwellness, I kind of went through a depression, I did go through a depression for about 10 years. And what brought me out of it was music as well. I was working with Desert Hearts Crew and kind of becoming part of that community. And I'll never forget 2016 or 17, Superflu was playing a set. I had taken a little psilocybin and just completely lost myself in the music, and a thousand dots that before had seemed unconnected, unrelated, suddenly connected themselves. And I just had this massive moment of release. And to me, that's like one of the most important points in my recovery. But when I think about it, I also recognize that it was really important. I was doing the work before that as well, going to therapy. I found a therapist that I really liked and I was going often. I don't think it would have been possible for me had I not been doing that. Do you feel the same way about your physical injury?
I do. Yeah. It's all part of it. It's not one thing, it's,
Yeah.
You got to kind of do the work to get there. And that's just the unfolding of the onion, it's like, it's all part of it. I don't believe there's one thing that works for one person. And I've learned this through mentors and through my own experience. There's just not one thing that works for one person. So every single thing that you do leads up to something bigger helping you out in that experience. So it's kind of like going to school. You're like, why am I taking all these other courses when I just really love this? But the thing that you love the most, it does rely on all those other courses to get you good at that thing. So it's kind of the same thing with working out and feeling good. It's just all the things that you're doing, contributing to your diet, contributing to exercise. But I would never tell someone not to go to a doctor or not to go to a hospital, but it's all the things that you can do on top of those things. Like I haven't been to a doctor in 7 years or 8 years since my accident almost. So
wow.
I realized that I can take care of myself. I eat good. I exercise. I love dancing. I love listening to music all the time. And I say that music really is medicine because you can use it as a tool all day long. I use music to feel better. When I want to get in the car, I put on classical or jazz, or when I'm on a road trip and I want to get some energy and I'm trying to stay awake, I might put on some good hard techno. And when I'm on the dance floor, I want to dance, and when I want to just chill, I put on some down tempo. And like there's a time for everything, and like using the music and its energy source to make you feel better or make you feel a certain way is the key.
And you're working on a documentary called Heartbeat documentary. And this is kind of this focal point of that, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been my life's work now is getting Heartbeat out to the world. And it's a documentary about the power of music. I like to say beyond entertainment, because most people see music as a means of entertainment, or just to go to a concert and let go, or to hear your favorite band play their favorite song. And that's great. It's fun to do that, but there's way more to it. And that's what I want to show people, the science, the energy, and the ancestry that music really comes from, the roots.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to kind of discuss with you a little bit and see if you were open to it, was the history of music and how far back into human history music has played an important role. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that? That's not something I'm very familiar with. So,
yeah, part of my research, it was like, it dawned on me that we really are not only made of music, like our whole body kind of functions musically, but because of that, it's been used ever since the beginning of time, when we wanted to communicate with each other, when we started to basically uh, create instruments, not only just out of, pure boredom, but they started to bond communities together. They would use call and response to other tribes in different areas. Animals do it all the time, and it's a reflection too of the animal world, because like dolphins use sonar to communicate, and bats use it, and there's all these different frequencies that are built into our human nature that are there, like just our vocal cords are vibrating to speak from me to you. It's translating a thought that I have. The wind from my breath is vibrating my vocal cords with the thought and intention to come out and communicate. And then I can use that as song. I can use it as communication. I can use it as a stress response, or so many different things. And these methods have been there since the very beginning, but I know that our ancestors actually figured this out long before we had. It's like they just knew, because there wasn't a whole lot of other things, like we have hospitals and medicine to go take. They didn't have these things. They figured out through connection of source to their own higher spirit that they would have to dance and sing and chant these sometimes negative or positive energies to elevate them.
mm-hmm. It's kind of like at some point there was a divergence between this like ancestral knowledge with like science and economy and stuff, kind of took human cultures on a different route. But it seems like right now they're converging again, right? Like science is kind of accepting some of these, or at least willing to explore some of these old ideas, right?
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, there was a time where, there's people like Tesla and Einstein and Royal Rife, and people that had started to realize that sound had more implications and power and frequency and tone on our psyche and our body than most people realized. And I think the higher ups, the people in charge, really knew that too, and they either didn't want that to happen, or there was some sort of conspiracy maybe. But honestly, you realize that you people could make people feel better with certain music and sound. And even if you research the pyramids and the Egyptians, they were using the temples and the pyramids there to actually have sound healing, all type of activities, from using the water that flowed underneath it to the chambers resonance. They built it specifically to heal certain parts of our body. I don't know how they knew that. I literally, that blows my mind. There's some things I just don't really understand, but I do get it, and I do feel it, and I share it with other people because it's so interesting, and I don't really get it, but I want to share it anyway. And that's part of Heartbeat. Isn't like, hey, this is fact that you will heal from this specific frequency. I'm never going to tell someone that, because I don't know those specific details, and I don't think anybody really does. But what you do learn is that intentions plus frequency equals healing. And I learned that from Jonathan Goldman, but I learned that from my own experience as well, is that it's the intentions that are coming from those frequencies, because you can really hurt people with all kinds of frequencies, the level of the frequency, and also the type of frequency that you're using that you may or may not be able to hear.
So the idea is that certain frequencies are encouraging certain patterns of thought in an individual that end up releasing certain chemicals in the brain that have positive effect on the body. Is that a fair
I'm not sure what the way you worded it, but I'll
Yeah.
tell you this. Sound forms matter in a sense because it forms patterns based on that particular frequency. If you watch cymatic patterns, anything online about cymatics, frequency is the if you put up a tone generator on a Chladni board and put salt, and you start to see the tones of the different frequencies, they form patterns. Those patterns are formed pretty much all throughout life in all different types of animals, human beings, planetary stuff. Every single thing in every form in life is formed from a pattern of a frequency. And you start to see those patterns show up all over the place. And I do believe and I do understand that your thoughts that you're having are created by a specific frequency, which is this particular pattern. And then by you speaking that thought or intention is creating that particular pattern to occur as well. So you're changing and altering things by speaking, by thinking, by putting your intentions out into the world, you know?
Yeah. What were your intentions then when you went to Burning Man? Was it just to see what it was all about, or were you? How did you frame your mindset going into that?
I had zero intentions. I just wanted to go have fun and let loose. I literally, that's all. I had no idea what it was. I thought maybe it was a giant art and music event, which it is, but I really just wanted to go and let loose and have fun and just figure out what my friend was telling me about that would be so good for me. I didn't realize he didn't tell me anything, and I didn't go online to look at it. So I kind of just I wanted to be the child inside that would just be like, "Hey, show me something that I don't know. Let me see." And that's why I went in with that mindset of like a child and just play. And because I hadn't had that chance to play like that in a long time since the crash, so it was a lot of emotions that came up that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah. Do you find that even after that initial Burning Man, that at new music festivals you go to, I've seen you at Desert Hearts before. Do you still continually find that you're discovering new things about yourself or healing in different ways that you didn't even know needed attention?
I've been to so many festivals since Burning Man. You would like flip out. Like I started going to. It was like that year I went to Utopia, Desert Hearts, LIB, Leyenda, Genius Loki. Like I went to every single festival you could. Serenity and Lucidity. I literally, if there was a festival, I'd go to it. And I realized that every single one, I was like changing me dramatically from my emotions, feelings, my physical being. I got so much. I started to keep track of like on my phone how much walking I was doing and how much like dancing steps. And it would be like before I left, it'd be like an average of like 2,000 steps or 2,000 steps for like a whole weekend. When I left, it was like 20,000 a day. Saturday, 22,000 on Saturday, 20,000 on Sunday. It was like I was extremely active and energized to the point where I was walking and moving so much that I literally was like in the best shape of my entire life while being at festivals and meeting so many amazing people and starting to see all the sound baths pop up and yoga tents and being more involved and then starting to film and photograph for different communities. It became like my life, and I kind of put everything else on hold. It was like all I wanted to do was go to festivals and live in the festival world and just be a festival kid. But I'm not, I'm 45 years old now, so I was like 40 years, about 39 years old, 40 years old when I started doing that. 40, 37, 38, and I just couldn't stop. It was like my favorite thing to do, my favorite thing to be at. And then I started to realize that each one, I started to become a little bit different. I wanted to start participating and giving back in different ways, which I didn't realize I could do. Each time you start to realize like, oh, next time I want to go, I want to gift this, or next time I want to go, I want to be more of a listener, and next time I want to go, I want to give some advice if I can, help someone that's going through something. Like you start to realize that each time you go, there's like a little purpose for you being there,
Hmm.
and whether it's to help fix you, or it's to help fix somebody else, or to fix the world in general. Like I've saw so many people come up with amazing ideas on what their businesses they're going to start, from friendships they created, business relationships, um, physical, sexual relationships. Like everything just kind of blossoms at a festival. It's like this
Hmm.
breeding ground for amazingness and for people to explore themselves and not be judged. And it was an eye opener because I came from a world where even in the film and production industry, it's just like it's cliquish, it's really cool, but there's always like a little bit of judgment here and there. And when you go to a place where you're not being judged and you're not thinking about anything else other than how to contribute and have fun, it's a different mindset that kind of just that's all you want when you get it.
Yeah. Was that initial hunger for you just a hunger for more, or were you at that point certain that you wanted to make a documentary and start shooting it? How did the documentary start, and was it formulated early?
Yeah, after that experience at the temple of Burning Man, my first burn, when I came back to my body, it was like I realized then that I was here for a purpose from that crash, and I was to do something really big and to help change the world. And I didn't really know exactly what that was, but I started thinking to myself, like, maybe I'm supposed to make like a documentary. Maybe it's something that I'm supposed to share with my skills that I have of making films and being a photographer and videographer, to share that experience with my knowledge of music and community that I'm starting to learn about. And so when I first started the idea, it was a year later after the burn. I had like made it in my mind. I was going to like meet people, research, get some things all set up for pre-production before I start actually filming, so I don't waste too much time. So I waited a good year before I actually, launched the idea of Heartbeat. And back then, Heartbeat was called House of DJs,
Hmm.
and it was more about my experience from DJs changing my life, because like I said, I'd played music in bands and stuff, and I never really had that experience that I did with music I did at festivals or with electronic music. So I was really kind of focused on that then. I wasn't really focused on the whole broad spectrum of music at that point. It was like I found healing through electronic music, so that's where I was headed. And I found healing through community, and I found healing from being at these experiences, and I wanted other people to feel that experience. But as I start editing and going through with my editor, we sat and looked at the footage. All the interviews I started doing, I got the same message from everybody. It was like, man, the music really helped me. If I didn't have music, I don't know what I would have done. Like, it was hitting me that from every single person, they were like, I don't know it became more about that than it became about anything else. And so that's when I shifted the whole idea of House of DJs becoming not just about music from electronic music festivals, but to shift it so that it can open up to everybody that
Hmm.
hasn't been to a music festival, that maybe not into electronic music. So I had to rethink and rediscover what it was going to be better to tell a story of is making Heartbeat available to everybody, or just to people that we hang out with. And I really wanted it to be open for everybody. So it was that experience that kind of grew and blossomed, and then taught me that music is all forms, and there's healing in all forms of music.
But is there something unique? Like, what do you think is so unique about house or techno music that distinguishes it from other genres, that maybe makes it a more healing modality, at least from what it sounds like you're saying?
There's a few things I've learned. It's not only the beat patterns, the rhythmic beats. It's like consistently like four on the floor sometimes. I know there's drum and bass, and I know there's break beats and techno and all those different styles of electronic music. But the four on the floor is the foundation, and soul house music was like very positive and energetic and uplifting to the soul and to the spirit. And I think that Four on the Floor was really in tune with our heartbeat, so to speak. And there's so many reasons why I do call the movie Heartbeat, but that is one of them. It's because we really are in tune with the music. Like, it's called resonance coherence, where if a bunch of people are on the dance floor and everybody's on the same, listening to the same music, their heartbeats are all going to sync up together. Our brains and hearts are all like on the same energy level and the same vibe, and it creates a coherence. It's kind of like if you were to put 100 different metronomes in a room together and they were all going different. You set them off at different, but within a few minutes, all those metronomes are going to link up and sync up and start doing the same exact beat. It's the same thing on the dance floor. It's amazing, and it's also a science. It's like we are made to like sync up with each other. It's this coherence, this resonance coherence is like so common. That is part of the healing. And when you're with a bunch of people on the dance floor, that's why everyone feels the same and feels alike. And like, you don't even have to speak to anybody because they're getting it and you're getting it. And it's like, that's a serious scientific physical reaction that's happening.
Damn.
And they can actually measure and respond with, it's like you're seeing it happen with people's brains and hearts. They're all communicating, and they're all on the same wavelength. And I believe, going back to my point, that's the rhythm that's keeping you in tune with everybody and keeping you on that upbeat, or that Four on the Floor is just making you feel good. But then it's the consistency also. It doesn't, people don't stop after a song like you do at a concert and clap every few seconds. They continually just keep playing, and like the music doesn't stop. Like at Desert Hearts, the music didn't stop for, I was there on the dance floor. You couldn't get me to leave for like sometimes 36 hours. I just would sit there and just keep dancing and dancing because the music didn't stop, so I wouldn't stop.
Were you there for the 100-hour weekend?
Yeah, I have. I couldn't stop. I love Desert Hearts so much. I was going to every single Desert Hearts, and I would never leave the dance floor. People would go to sleep and come back, and I would still be on the dance floor. And that's where I met all my best friends, is on the dance floor. You meet people that you really love and that you don't even have to barely feel like that well, and you all of a sudden just have this like great like bond that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah. That reminds me of some advice. I think it was one of the Funkworks guys gave me one time whenever I used to shoot Desert Hearts, and I remember I had a severe case of anxiety one particular time. It happened often, but this one particular time, I remember one of the Funkworks guys coming up to me, and he just said, "Just go stand in front of the speaker. Just go stand in front of the speaker. Do it now." And, just standing there, you're kind of forced to just let go. You can't stand there and hold on to it. It's very difficult. It's like holding on to a negative idea. It's not easy to do, especially whenever you're surrounded, like you're saying, by people who are resonating so deeply with that music.
Yeah, it's almost like it shakes it out of you.
Yeah.
the bass frequency is just like, get it out of you. But, we do have that stuff in our energy field. Like I told you, from one of the scientists that I've interviewed, her name's Eileen McCusick, and she wrote a book called Tuning the Human Biofield. And what she learned is with tuning forks, you can alter people's biofields. They have this energetic field I told you around it. It's the EMF, electronic magnetic field. And they basically know how to tap into that and like release some of the energy that's caught in those fields. And she uses tuning forks because she finds dissonance in the tuning. She finds she can she'll tap the fork within a few feet of the body. She can start to hear a tone change. And when she does, she has different methods of using that tone and getting rid of it, like clearing it from the body through the chakras. It's an amazing like science.
You mentioned dissonance. Can you elaborate on that term?
Dissonance being disharmony. When you have disharmony, you have dis-ease. Dis-ease creates patterns of sickness, illness, cancers. And so that's why I say it's good to have the body in a harmonic state, in harmony. When it's balanced and it's in harmony, the homeostasis is balanced, everything functions normal. Your body repairs itself really quickly. And you don't need prescription pills, and you don't need to go to the doctor as often. And you have a better chance of fighting off any kind of illness or disease or bacteria that may come your way because you're now in tune and everything is functioning at the highest peak, the highest level.
You mentioned in your TED Talk, I think it was cancer cells was one thing that music has been found to kind of devastate. You want to talk about that a little bit and elaborate on what's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting phenomenon that is not new. It's what I've learned is they started to figure out back in the late 1800s, and I say they, several scientists who were working on just frequencies and different microscopic ways of finding levels of frequencies in the body and seeing why some cancer cells or cells that made us sick were maybe had a different frequency than the healthy cells. And when they found that, they thought to themselves, how can I get rid of this cancer cell or this the cell that's no longer serving us and not destroy the cells that are healthy around it? And when they figured out pulses of oscillating frequency of sound, they were able to basically blast the cancer cell or blast the sick cell that they found the frequency of from the microscope. Say the microscope found it to be between 100,000 and 300,000 hertz. They would then take two different frequencies and blast the cancerous cell from the outside of the wall and just send those particular frequencies back and forth. Instead of, like, if you held the frequency, what I learned on there, too long, it could burn out the cell and burn the cells out around it. But if they pulsed it, it's like a pulsing laser of heat. They were able to blast that particular cell and leave the cells that are healthy around it. And I used the example of like an opera singer shattering a wine glass, or, that kind of example, or a bridge being able to be shattered by sending a particular frequency through that bridge. It's like it just falls apart. And the same thing when an opera singer finds the resonance frequency of the glass, when they sing at that level, at that frequency, it then shatters the glass. It can't withstand its own self. It can't withstand its own frequency. And they apply that same physics to cancer cells or any kind of cell, and they literally watch the cell just deteriorate and then watch all the other cells around it completely just function properly.
All of our cells are giving off a low level frequency at all times, right? Am I interpreting right?
The entire body is a resonant frequency. And so all of the organs, all of the cells are vibrating at a particular frequency. If you have something, if something is vibrating, something is creating sound and something is creating frequency. And everything is vibration. So therefore everything is creating a frequency or sound. Whether you can hear it or not, that's one thing, but it's creating a frequency. And so measuring those frequencies, they've broken down the entire body into different levels. Now everybody's is within a range. It's not my organ, my kidney may not be the same exact frequency as your kidney, but they're within a range. It's the human kidney is going to be within a range. And so that's how they do the same thing with pills that you take. They basically have a frequency of each chemical, and that frequency is tapping into the parts of the brain that are releasing specific enzymes to help that particular part of the body. I believe music and generated frequencies are doing the same exact thing. It's releasing specific chemicals in the brain just as a pill would.
How do they measure frequency in, say, your kidney? How is that done?
There's devices. Just like ultrasound can measure all different parts of the body and cells. They have particular devices that measure different frequencies of different organs, and I don't really know exactly what those devices are called.
Okay.
But they have them, and they can literally measure any type of cell.
That's crazy.
It might be in the different type of microscopic. They probably take different tissues, and then there's something that reads different amounts of either vibration or light or different types of things that can pick up on those frequencies.
Yeah. Maybe I'll try to find a link to something after this and put it in the show notes for anyone who's curious.
Yeah, I'm really curious too. That's something I just haven't really kind of studied or looked up.
Yeah. So we were talking about cell frequency. There was something I wanted to ask, but it has escaped me.
Yeah, the cancer cells, music, being a source. They have all kinds of therapy in cancer wards now that's derived all about music. Like they have music in UCLA, they have a music therapy department that's specifically geared for people that are going through cancer or going through different uh, depressions and PTSDs type episodes. Like it's just there's so many different uses now, and they're finding that people with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, you can use vibroacoustic therapy to generate certain, say if you have a tone generator in a vibroacoustic therapy bed, you can generate specific frequencies that neuroscientists have found have almost reversed or slowed down the process of dementia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's.
It's crazy. And one thing I saw recently was actually from our mutual friend, Devin McClernand. He sent me a TED Talk that was about a person who had dystonia and found that music, and whenever they were listening to music and expressing themselves through dance, they were able to calm their muscle contractions enough that they had control of their body. It's just another example of like the power of music.
Devin is a prime example, and he's going to be in our film, Heartbeat. He is a walking miracle in so many reasons, for so many reasons, but he literally has done the work. He has found every different modality that would help him to feel better and to change his state of not only mind, but his physical state. And I've seen nothing but positive changes from him attending music festivals. I met him at Desert Hearts. I met him and him filming and just seeing him do his thing. And then we'd talk, and I couldn't understand him all the time because if the music's loud and he was talking, I couldn't understand it. But building a relationship with him, and then starting to film with him, and starting to get to know him and his experiences, he's overcome some of the most traumatic, not only brain and life injury type things where you are constantly dealing with doctors and constantly being a guinea pig and tested on. But he stuck with it, and he's come so far, and his story is really is powerful, and he's inspired me on so many different levels. And our relationship with music is part of the reason why we're best friends now, or we're friends, and why we have both the same message to help people heal with not only community, being around people, community, but being around the music and going to these events, because he didn't even want to leave his house. He said before, he didn't want to participate in life very much. He felt like he couldn't, people wouldn't understand him. He felt like he couldn't do his thing, which was like the love of photography and filming. And he found he could do all of those things at a community. And he found all of those things at a music festival where people were like super open to letting him film, hiring him, to communicating with them, to being his friend, and really just like helping him let loose. And I've seen nothing but growth and change in that guy, and it's just amazing.
I know. Yeah, I feel the same way about him, man. He's an inspiration. Getting to work with him on some music festival shoots it's always just, you just are so appreciative for what you have, but also just so inspired about what a determined human can accomplish, and overcoming the odds. We love you, Devin. Hope you're listening.
Yeah, absolutely. He helped link us together too. Yep. It's like he wanted to make sure that people are healing, and I think that's his main intention. I think that's my main intention. That seems to be your main intention. We all are here for a purpose, and when you find that purpose, it's a really great thing. Mark Twain once said that, the two most important days are the day you're born and then the day you find out why you're here, and finding out the day that why you're here is really important. And sometimes it doesn't hit you for years and years and years. You may be 50 or 60, 70 when you get it. You may never get it in this life, but having that experience and like finding a purpose, even if it's not a divine purpose, it's just having a purpose and helping people, helping the world a little bit each day, or doing something to leave your mark,
Yeah. I kind of want to double back to something you mentioned, and that's like the community at music festivals. So do you think it's that, what did you call it? Coherent resonance? Was that it? the word you
Yeah,
use?
resonant coherence. Yeah.
Resonant coherence. Do you think that's the reason why people tend to be so open and loving at music festivals? You know, you definitely encounter a different level of human kindness at a music festival than you do in your everyday life. Do you think that has a major role in why that is?
I think it has it plays a role, but I think people in general that go to music festivals and people that want to be part of the experience there are going with that mindset of I'm going to nature, I'm going camping, I'm going to be around a lot of people. I want to try and put my best foot forward and I want to be part of something. Like it just kind of seems like that's what goes with that territory. Like I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't expect um you release a prison full of people and they go to a music festival and they're all going to come out of there like, yeah, I changed my life and
Yeah.
I'm not, I don't want to hurt anybody or steal anything ever again. Like I would want that to happen, but I think the people that go there in general want those experiences to happen and want to create a synergy and a coherence with others. However, with that said, I do believe if you did let out a group of prison people and they did have an experience there, it would change them most likely and give them some sort of like hope and change to want to like be a better, different person. It seems like it just comes with that. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's almost in the package of going to a music festival that we go to, is that you're going to come back feeling like you want to give back more or be part of community or have friends that are more conscious minded and thinking about you know the evolution of mankind and making it better, making
Yeah.
the world that we live in a better place.
I guess that's the intention that you spoke of. That's super important.
Yeah, can imagine if that's why there's certain music festivals, and I don't want to mention any names, but there's music festivals that are just about the money. And when you see that, you see the repercussions of the people that go there and them going there with the intentions of like, I'm just gonna get wasted and find life through, the bottom of of something. Like I don't know. It's all about the intentions, and I think, communities like Burning Man and Desert Hearts and LIB and a lot of these places where they're looking to help facilitate a consciousness and a mindful effort to become a better human. It's like a breeding ground for just creating better people.
Mm-hmm. And the
You know?
music itself gives us that intention a space to grow and kind of be almost like a contagion, right? Where it's caught on by other people.
Yeah, because the cool thing is there's music for everybody at those things too. You may not
Mm-hmm.
love house, you may not love techno, you may not love just music at all, but there's something there for everybody. And that's the great part about those too, is that it gives people a place and a space to be themselves and to find themselves if they don't know what that self is. It's just a really great place for people to open up and to find like-minded people that have good energy, that want to share and give back and become something better than themselves.
Is in doing your documentary and now your podcast, which we can kind of switch gears to here in a second, but in doing the work and those interviews, have you encountered any stories of people, healing themselves in the way that maybe you or I have in a different genre? Like, is rock doing this for people, or is hip hop? What's your take on that?
Yeah, in fact, I've interviewed over 60 different people from all walks of life, and everyone has had different experiences from different styles of music. So there isn't one style of music or genre that is healing. In fact, that's where blues came from. That's where jazz came from, bluegrass. Like those people were going through a lot of torture and pain, and they used music back then as a means to release and to share and to communicate how they were feeling. And if you listen to that music a lot, it's a release of soul and energy that was just trapped inside, that was being sometimes hurt, abused, pain. A lot of music is sung about painful things, and if you're going through something painful and you want to share it with someone, that's the best way to do it. And then people recognize that and they're going through the same thing, and you may really help people that are going through the same thing by just, that's why it's so important to have a variety of music. And,
Hmm.
if you only like one thing, that's great too. But I've learned from classical to country, I may not like every style of music, but I love music that makes you feel good or makes you feel in general. And has a purpose. Like, you can tell music that's been created for commercial purposes and just to create money and to generate some sort of something in you that just, like, I'll be in a grocery store and like music's like literally almost driving me to either go insane or get out of there. Like, I just, like, there's certain music, that's on there and it's confusing you and it's keeping you in a place where you're not like thinking properly and you're not really focused on something.
Yeah.
So music can really kind of stir up your emotions in different ways.
Yeah. Is there a difference that you found? I mean, for me personally, whenever I listen to music that has lyrics versus something like house, or I really love movie scores. I'll listen to, like before we talked, I have a playlist of movie scores that I'll listen to just kind of bring me, me down a little bit. Is there a benefit to not having lyrics in music that allows people to kind of make it their own, in your opinion?
I used to think that, but I also realized that there's a lot of music with lyrics that really generate like some sort of emotion in you, because you can't sometimes put to words that the lyricist has spent all that time doing. So it goes both ways. I think there's definitely um, an allowance for your own internal thoughts when there's no words. But then when there are words, you communicate and you connect with someone that is feeling that way, and you feel that same exact way, that it's like you just want to scream out and say those lyrics. So I think it goes both ways.
Yeah.
There's not one that works for one and one that doesn't work for another. I think it just varies.
Yeah, for sure. And depending on the person's thoughts, what they're dealing with in their life.
Right.
There's obviously songs that I know of that have lyrics that, if I'm sad, really resonate with me, but they don't really resonate with me as much if I'm happy. So my emotion almost has to match that lyrical output, I think.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're
Sorry, heavy
No, go
metal
ahead.
back in the day, I used to love listening to Slayer, Metallica, and not that I don't still, but I used to be just, I think back in the day, I was like, that energy that I carried with me was kind of aggressive, and like I was going through a lot, as a kid, and I had a great life, but I always felt like energy of like, I want to be like, rah! And like Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer kind of gave me those emotions. It
Oh,
was
I
like,
love
it made you feel
Megadeth.
edgy. Give
Yeah.
you this like punk edgy feeling that you wanted to have as a kid. That
Yeah.
you want to just rebel and feel different, and that's what that music kind of made me feel. And then rap, even, it was like, I'd feel like sort of gangster. It gives you that feeling, even though you're not.
Yeah.
It made me make you feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Megadeth was my like go-to track and field music before running the 400 or something. Just get so amped up on it. It's like a
Yeah,
shot of adrenaline, man.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Rocky, you always think of the Survivor song. It's like,
Yeah.
you can't help but like, there's certain triggers that are just, and music, another thing, it just kind of helps people recall memories, and it helps you remember things. I used to remember all 50 states in alphabetical order when I was a kid because of song. You just put it in a song and all of a sudden you remember it.
Yeah. To
I
go
used to
off.
study for
Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
used to study for school and college, just putting stuff in a song, like just, I'd sing it. And then when I come to the test, I'd like sing it in my head. I'd know the answers.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually what I was going to mention. Was I recently saw a study that was saying they were testing the effects of music on memory, and they had, it had a double, or they had a control group and a group that was listening to music as they read over some facts, and and they played the music while they were sleeping for one group, and they found that the group that listened to the music while learning and then had it playing during their sleep were, I forget the percentage, but far more likely to retain the information than the group that did it without music.
Yeah, that's it's putting your brain into different brainwave states that allow you for that's I forgot that. Thanks for bringing that up. That's something that also happens with electronic music, I believe, or just music in general. It's the type of music you're listening to, and it can put your brain into different brainwave states, which allows you for better memory, for better healing. Like when we go to sleep at night, you want a particular brainwave state to help the body regenerate. If it doesn't reach those particular brainwave states, it's not going to go into a state of being where it's allowing the body to help regenerate cells and function higher again. So brainwave states are a big key to hypnosis, to generating like new cells, refreshing the brain, refreshing the body. It's definitely like part of it. So brainwave states, using music as that is a key.
Do you use music when you sleep?
Yeah, in fact, Jonathan Goldman, who I just interviewed for my podcast, he is the best to listen to. And I say this without any bias because there's a lot of different, I've listened to a lot of different music, but for some reason, I really resonate and feel so good when I get up in the morning after listening to his music.
The Dolphins album, I think, what was it called that he mentioned in your podcast that you shared
Yeah,
with me?
the Dolphins. Yeah, that one's really special. But I found Reiki Chants to be special. He's got a lot of different he used divine monks and people that have been using breath work and chanting for mantras for decades and eons. And he found these people and he gets them on his albums and they're really powerful. Like I don't know how he does it. He's very special in the way he produces these albums, and it's I really highly recommend trying his stuff.
What is it? He's the only Grammy winner to have a solo monk singing, chanting.
Yeah,
what was it?
right?
Something like that.
Yeah, it's really cool. He's unlike no other person in the field, where he too was at a young age playing music for somebody, and he said he noticed the music he was playing was inducing a state of negativity and violence, and from that point on, he's like, I want to use music to heal and help people feel better. So I'm going to start focusing my consciousness on that. And from that point on is when he got into sound healing and using music as a modality to heal. And he's got down the rabbit hole like I did. And he's someone I really look up to.
That's rad. Yeah,
he's got a lot of accomplishments.
I don't want to give too much away from that because that's going to be an upcoming podcast for you that you're working on, right?
I'm excited to release this. Yeah.
So what's the estimated schedule with that? When can we expect some content from the podcast?
Pretty soon. We're trying to put together at least 2 or 3 episodes before they launch it. So our next up is DJ Dan, and he's got some amazing stories to tell, which I'm excited to re-interview him. I interviewed him for the film, but I'm now going to re-interview him for the podcast. And I, like you, I'm learning how to do this interview process and how to share other people's experiences on a massive scale. And this is a really great platform for that.
Yeah. Is the podcast is basically going to be an extension of the documentary, right? It's following the same kind of ethos.
Yeah, I want to help people feel better and to open their minds up about the power of music. And I think if you can do it on an auditorial level, if you can do it on a visual level, and whether they have to be together or not, it's great. And I'm just getting into podcasts. My partner Sergio that I work with on Heartbeat, he's the editor. He's been telling me about different podcasts and sending me different podcasts. And I never used to be a good audio listener. Like I wouldn't be in a car and just put on podcasts. But now that I'm home, I've been just sitting, instead of sometimes reading a book, I'll put on a podcast for a half hour, an hour, and just listening to some really educational, or sometimes a cool mystery or drama that they take you there. It's a really neat place, space to without visuals, take people.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off.
Sometimes I just keep talking, so cut me off, please.
No. I was just going to ask, what are some resources if someone I'm curious to do some researching on my own? Are there any podcasts or books that you would recommend to kind of follow you down the rabbit hole here?
At this point, I'm just getting started on it. I couldn't recommend too many. And what I found is there's not a whole lot on what we're doing right now with music, with sound, or with healing. Helping people talk about mental health and wellness. Like it doesn't seem to be a really big category. There's health and there's music, but they don't talk about the two. And I think what we're doing right now is really on the forefront of podcasts. Like I haven't found too much revolving around it. So I've been just finding stuff that people are sending me, whether it's people that I really enjoy, like Eileen McCusick, who I interviewed her. She has a podcast. I've been listening to some of hers. And then she's been on a few different hosts. So I'll find people that I'm interested in and just kind of look up them and see if they have something.
Who's Eileen McCusick?
She was the one I told you about that I interviewed, a scientist who's
That's
been
right. You mentioned
studying,
that.
tuning the human biofield. I really
That's
recommend
right.
that book or the audiobook, Tuning the Human Biofield. It's a very fascinating way to learn about what she does and using tuning forks and healing people with taking the energy field and manipulating the trauma and stress. She said we basically have like tree rings, and there's from birth till now, it sits in different levels of tree rings. So she has to find that area, and she kind of said that we all general kind of keep things in different places in the same kind of place. So she just knows how to find it with like I said, the dissonance of the tuning of the fork, and she can find different means of frequencies to pull those out of you and get it out of the body. And she talks about it in her book, and it's really fascinating.
That's awesome.
She's a really just interesting person to listen to.
You must love sound baths, huh?
I do. I haven't been to one in a while. They've been doing them virtually, which is really cool. But still, it's not the same, because then you kind of, it's like being in the space and absorbing the frequencies firsthand really helps. You could do it through, putting good headphones on, and if they're translating the sound bath frequencies through a good recording, I think it's good. But it's really nice being at a sound bath. It's very refreshing.
Because there's obviously no bass, no four on the floor going on at a sound bath, right? You're just what's happening there is you're being washed with a certain frequency, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they use so many different instruments. Some really resonate with some people, and some don't. And I think I've learned from talking to different doctors and scientists that maybe there's a certain tone in that frequency, even though it's bothering you or you may not agree with it. It's like unsettling. It may be releasing something inside the body. Because sometimes people feel sick after a sound bath too.
Really?
It's like a purge. It's releasing so much. It's kind of like if you took like a detox. It's releasing so much stuff that it's bringing to the surface sometimes that you have to almost purge it out, either through throwing up or through a bowel movement or through different means of, they want you to drink a lot of water afterwards. It's like getting a massage, but internally, non-invasive.
Interesting. I wonder if a similar thing to the opera singer with the wine glass is going on there.
It is. It's shaking stuff up.
Yeah.
On a molecular level, it's that those frequencies and the intentions that they're putting out are shaking stuff up. I mean, I've busted out like crying at some sound baths. Like I've heard a lot of people go through different emotional responses. It can bring back like memories. It can bring up things. It can let go of things. Like there's a lot. And then you have other people in the room that are going through stuff that you could be very empathic to.
Mm-hmm.
So sound baths, if you haven't been, go to one at the Integratron. The Integratron is located in Landers, Joshua Tree, California. And it's one of the most unique sound domes in the whole world. And it's built on specific ley lines that have energy that is like no other. And this place is very, very, very powerful. I highly recommend even just going to stop and look at it. But if you can, make an appointment online. You can go in and experience a sound bath there. It's very, very special.
So different places themselves can have different frequencies that might affect you in different ways.
Yeah, it's kind of all the intentions, right? Like I was mentioning earlier, like if you go to a festival without good intentions, you may come out of there not really having the same experience that you and I do at Desert Hearts or Burning Man.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the intention, and places that are set up for sound baths, the place that it's actually in could have a really effect. Like what if I was on a rooftop and then, helicopters and jets are going by your sound bath every 5 seconds, you're taking a sound bath. It's really not that going to be that enjoyable, and you may not really get the same experience. Whereas if you were in like a soundproofed room and all you're hearing is just those instruments and those people putting out the musicians putting out the intentions for that. it just has a different effect on the mind and body. So I believe, all of it matters. The location, the intention, the type of frequency that's being released, and how it's affecting you.
Yeah.
All plays a role.
Yeah. I wonder what's going on whenever you, when I related my experience at Desert Hearts, where I had tons of different dots connecting in my head, and it's like the brain was firing in just a way that was encouraged by everything that was going on, from the music to the community. I wonder, it's just so interesting to me that something like sound can influence your brain to fire in such a specific way that it explores your past. It's weird.
Well, it seems like everything, like I said, is all the neurons, everything in the body is a response to vibration, is vibrating, so it responds to it. It's kind of like they use another form of coherence in the Anthony in the TEDx video that talks about cancer. Anthony, I'm blanking on his name right now. I'm sorry. We'll remember later, but he basically puts two tuning forks together, and they're side by side, and he hits one tuning fork, and that tuning fork starts to slowly infect the other tuning fork, where that starts vibrating at the same exact frequency without even touching it. So there's this thing happening there. It's just like vibration is going to create other vibration, and it's going to create a resonant coherence. And so the brain is just we're a giant antenna, basically, and we're responding to frequency constantly. It's always bombarding us. It's around us all the time. You can't see it. Sometimes you can, so you can feel it. The colors are every color is a frequency. People say sometimes you can hear like a color, or you can see color like a sound.
Synesthesia or something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's where a certain person develops like a sonar type thing, where the vibration of the thing itself is being responded to a chemical or a synapse in their brain that's causing them to be able to see it without, just from the resonant frequency of it. Their hearing is creating them the ability to be able to see it.
Yeah. It's crazy. So much we don't know about how the brain works. I'm so fascinated with it. And yeah.
It's a lot, and I think just doing our part day to day, like trying to feel better, is the most important part. Because when you feel better, then people around you feel better. We're very like, I like, it's like osmosis. You like, and good energy creates more good energy, and like, when you're at a place and someone with bad energy walks in the room, it's like it affects everybody a lot. So imagine if you're always putting out this like positive glow and positive energy. Not that you can always do that, but if you do that on a general basis, like, it's effective around the people around you, and they're feeling better, and then they're going to make them family feel better, and their families. It's like a domino effect for positive energy.
Yeah.
And those breeding grounds at the festivals is just that. It's like a breeding ground for positive energy, and it's infectious. And when you're there and you want to bring it back with you, and when you get home and you want to bring it to work, and you want to bring it to your family, and like, look what I learned, look how I feel, and like, people are like, what are they on? What are they doing? But it's really just, they're feeling good, and other people want to feel good too.
Well, I don't have many more questions here, Mikey. I really appreciate your time, man, and I appreciate what you're doing very much. I think your story is super inspirational for me, and like I said, I appreciate you taking the time to share it with us.
I'm so grateful to be able to share this story, and I'm so grateful for people like you that are seeking others to share the stories. It's like, this is how we do it. This is community. This is outreach, and this is like other people heal from hearing other people's experiences. And I don't know, it's like when you watch a good movie or something, or a good show, it's just, you resonate with it so much that you want to tell everybody about it, and you want to share that message. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for doing what you do.